One day, everything changed as monsters arrived to our world from mysterious gates. At the same time, some individuals transcended humanity by gaining supernatural powers. They became known as hunters as they began to put their life on the line to repel the incoming monsters. The crowd began to grow worried as the gate of the dungeon said to be challenging for the best was still not closed. When suddenly a man pointed out someone exiting the gate, and so he came out. All began to cheer as the dungeon was getting closed. The hunter affirmed that he had successfully conquered the dungeon. This was none other than the legendary hunter Guak Pilsong, who closed countless gates despite being over 60 years old. But suddenly, one day, this powerful hunter disappeared without leaving a trace, leaving only the tales of his prowess behind. A decade after the disappearance, the old man affirmed that he was the legendary hunter. Yet seeing how the young man didn't believe him left him particularly annoyed. The man then began to complain to his colleague, stating that this old man thinks he is Guak Pilsong, affirming that this must be nonsense as there was no way a legendary hunter would be stuck in this nursing home, yet the friend stated that it was possible as they had the same name and age. With that, the both of them assumed that this old man must have been a comedian in his youth. They then began to talk about how they wouldn't have taken this job if they were hunters, and that they should get a drink later. Just then, one of them noticed an exhausted man. He quickly rushed to check on him, but was then left baffled as a giant ant suddenly appeared in the room. As it gripped the man's neck, he began to beg for rescue, only for him to have his head chopped off by the giant insect. The nurse was terrified as he watched this atrocity in horror. The ant then decided to kill another man, but just then the armed one jumped into the air and stabbed the vile beast in its head, leaving the man utterly shocked. He was even more surprised when his savior turned out to be Guak Pilsong, who asked him to quickly escape. The legendary hunter then asked the nurse to evacuate everyone as the ants were many, leaving him concerned for his safety as he was about to face the monsters alone. Guak Pilsong reassured him by stating that he won't do anything past his limits. With that, the mocking nurse was certain that this was the true Guak Pilsong and wondered about the reason behind his presence in a nursing home. As the sun began to set, the giant insects kept on emerging from the portal. Guak Pilsong watched in silence, wondering how the specified association missed the appearance of this gate, when suddenly one of the monsters noticed him and let out a loud scream in order to alert the others. Having been discovered, the old one decided to take action, and so Guak Pilsong charged at the ants from up above, stabbing the first one in its head. He then noticed another one trying to bite him from behind, and so he quickly dodged the jaws of death. This left Guak Pilsong annoyed by the insects, and so our hero took down 4 ants with a single slash of his kitchen knife. With that, Guak Pilsong stood alone between the giant beast's corpses. Seeing how exhausted he was after killing some ants made the man realize that he was truly getting old and made him wish to be younger. But as it wiggled, the old man noticed, as a giant praying mantis appeared right behind him. With that, the terrified leader asked the insect if it was the boss of the insects, but the senseless beast didn't respond, as it attacked the old man, slamming him into a giant rock. This seemed like a tough adversary. Seeing how Guak Pilsong was unable to move, the mantis readied itself to dive its teeth deep in his flesh. But just as it was about to take the first bite, the old man opened his eyes and affirmed that the monster's mouth was revolting. With that, the hero stabbed the mantis' head. Now in pain, the insect tried to shake Guak Pilsong from its head by slamming him into the nearby trees, and when it stopped moving, the hero assumed it was unable to fight any longer. And so Guak Pilsong gathered his last strength in order to finish it off. Just like that, the giant praying mantis had been slain, finally collapsing to the ground. The hunter was happy to see that his skills weren't completely dulled as he began coughing. The exhausted old man then collapsed on the ground. Guak Pilsong realized that his body couldn't take it any longer. Thinking of how the bugs would have been easier to deal with 10 years ago, the hero found it amusing that he would die in agony like a true hunter. But just then, a notification caught him off guard as it congratulated him on conquering this dungeon, and he was then left intrigued as the system stated it would fulfill his wish for clearing it. Guak Pilsong received the god's blessing that would grant him eternal life. With that, his body began to change. As the gate began closing, a crowd of people who noticed him rushed to his aid. Later on, the old one woke up to a lady calling him. The confused Guak Pilsong asked about his whereabouts. The woman, who turned out to be a nurse, explained that he was transferred to this hospital in the capital after being found almost dead in front of the closing gate. After being asked to identify himself, the old one gave his name and year of birth. The year of birth shocked the lady. This annoyed our hero, who, despite his youthful looks, affirmed that he was 83 years old. After hearing this, the nurse was unable to believe that this young-looking man was an old man, which he confirmed annoyed once again. Guak Pilsong assumed that her reaction was due to him naturally looking like someone in his 70s, but in reality, he looked like someone in his 20s. But just then, he noticed. Guak Pilsong laid his eyes on his own reflection, before rushing to the mirror, shocked by his new appearance. His odd behavior made the nurse assume that the patient's injuries had caused him brain damage, and so she went to fetch a doctor as he was still under the shock. Just then, Guak Pilsong remembered what had happened before he lost consciousness, stating how this wasn't a hallucination. The old man recalled how some obtained new skills after clearing a dungeon, yet he had never heard of blessings. It was even more odd that this blessing restored his lost youth. After taking some time to think, Wak Pilsung decided to search for help instead of staying in the hospital. And when the nurse came back, the young one was nowhere to be seen. Wak Pilsung was now in front of a tall skyscraper. He recalled how he hadn't set foot in the association for 10 years. Upon entering the building, the legendary hunter noticed that the place was completely different. Wak Pilsung then asked someone for help as he had something to settle with the association. So the stranger pointed him to a strange kiosk and affirmed that he would have to grab a ticket in order to get a turn. But the 83-year-old man struggled to maneuver such machinery, leading to an annoyed line forming right behind him. Just then, a hand was placed on his shoulder. A tall man menacingly asked the hero to give him his turn as he had no time to waste. Some of the present hunters recognized this one as the C-rank troublemaker Medusik. To everyone's surprise, the young-looking one began to scold the man, stating that he should wait in line like everyone else. With that, the annoyed man grabbed the protagonist by his shirt, when suddenly, a tall, imposing presence interrupted them, affirming that combat was forbidden inside the association. Some people were left amazed, having recognized him as an S-rank hunter named Park Seok-chien, and others were seeing their first S-rank ever. The tall man was annoyed with the association, seeing how it was using someone of his rank to keep order. The crowd then began to whisper about his impressive height and how he seemed the pinnacle of masculinity, and despite not wanting to be flattered, this one adored being called manly. Just then, Wak Pilsung affirmed that the S-rank hunter didn't seem like a stranger. After thinking for some time, the hero recognized the tall hunter as Park Dabin, leaving him shocked. Being called by that name shocked the terrified hunter. The present hunters began to gossip about the S-rank being called Park Dabin. Wak Pilsung then began to talk about how the two of them hadn't met in a long time and how old he looked now. The S-rank hunter began to shiver in frustration upon hearing the crowd gossiping about this name. In reality, after becoming an S-rank hunter 10 years ago, Dabin decided to adopt a more serious name, thus going by Park Seok-chien. The tall one was left annoyed after being called by his true name by this young man, and just as the hero was about to ask this acquaintance for a favor, he was suddenly grabbed by the collar, as Park Dabin ordered him to identify himself. But instead of obeying, Wak Pilsung pointed out how the hunter had lost his delicacy, before reminding him that they couldn't fight inside the building in front of the giant crowd. After apologizing for his sudden outburst, Park Dabin proposed to move on to a more suitable location, before warning our hero to not even think about escaping as rage filled his eyes, creeping out the protagonist. After entering a vast empty space, Wak Pilsung asked about this place, so the S-rank explained that this was a sparring area for hunters, before asking our hero to identify himself and reveal where he learned his real name from. So the young-looking one presented himself as the legendary hunter before claiming that a recent incident made him regain his youth. Yet the tall one wasn't convinced and assumed that this young man was mocking him. After affirming that he gave him a chance and concentrating mana into his own fist, Park Dabin decided to uncover the truth by beating it out of the protagonist, only for Wak Pilsung to dodge the punch and call him out for being a hothead at this age. This swiftness left the S-rank hunter utterly shocked. The old man explained to the younger one that one should let go of his temper as he gets old. Park Dabin then affirmed that simply looking at his opponent made him more eager to uncover his real name as he decided to get serious. With that, the S-rank hunter turned himself into a monster after activating the skill Beast that turned him into a werewolf. The monster affirmed that he was done holding back, before charging our hero and daring him to dodge his attacks once again. Wak Pilsung had no choice but to block the incoming strike, leaving him impressed by this new strength. He then suddenly felt alerted as the werewolf claimed that his next move would hurt. Park Dabin then slashed the air with his claws, hitting our hero in multiple spots, sending him flying into the air, before slamming him into a wall. Seeing this, the satisfied S-rank hunter realized that he might have been carried away. But to his surprise, our smiling hero affirmed that this conflict couldn't be ended peacefully anymore. And so after firmly planting his foot into the ground, the legendary hunter charged at the monster, who was unable to believe that his S-rank strength couldn't even scratch the young-looking man. Wak Pilsung then claimed that his punch might pack a bit of a sting, before smacking the hunter in the jaw, knocking him into the air, before finally falling down. After some time passed, the werewolf still hadn't moved. This made our protagonist grow anxious, speculating that he might have killed him by mistake. While in his 20s, the young Park Dabin assumed that hunters were just overpowered barbarians deprived of beauty, as he recalled our old protagonist, checking on him while sitting on a pile of giant dead monsters. This left Dabin amazed, as meeting this one made the young one have a realization regarding his master's majestic power, describing it as something of splendid beauty. Just then, the unconscious man began to wake up. Upon opening his eyes, the S-rank hunter began to see the old one's true face. This startled him, only to find himself in front of the young-looking man who was glad to see him breathing. Wak Pilsung then began to scold the defeated hunter for attacking him like that, affirming that he had taught him better. With that, Park Dabin finally realized that the one in front of him was truly the legendary hunter, who was left irritated. Shortly after, our hero successfully finished summarizing the incident that led him to this state to the hunter, who seemed intrigued by the blessing. According to Dabin, blessings are abilities that stay active unlike skills. Wak Pilsong, who isn't familiar with blessings, pointed out how Tebin doesn't seem to have a deep knowledge of them either. This made the tall hunter apologize for not being able to assist the old man. Wak Pilsong had to ask Park Dabin to put a shirt on while watching him adore his own body and claim that he lost his clothes after transforming. The old man told the younger one not to give his situation much thought, as this gate-filled world had truly become odd and that the only thing that mattered was him regaining his youth. The overjoyed S-rank proposed to Wak Pilsong to return to the association, as many would be delighted by his return. But as the old one called him, the atmosphere suddenly changed. Park Dabin was surprised to learn that Wak Pilsong wanted to keep his return a secret. Before asking him if he was aware of the reason behind his sudden retirement, the S-rank was left shocked when the master asked if he recalled the names Taeyong, Byamsik, and Jiyoon. With a saddened expression, the tall one affirmed that he would forever remember them. Wak Pilsong recalled how they gave away their lives in order to let him survive numerous dungeons. Park Dabin firmly affirmed that he would have also done the same, seeing how precious the old man was to them, but was then shocked when the hero affirmed that this dedication was the main reason behind his retirement. The protagonist explained that he became too idolized by those around him at one point, feeling guilty as he saw young souls sacrifice themselves to save his old bones. Wak Pilsong feared reliving this pain upon making his return public, as he was unable to witness young sprouts wither for him once again. After hearing and understanding this philosophy, the S-rank hunter decided to keep the old man's return a secret, as he wished. When asked about his next step, the old man affirmed that he was still thinking about it. So Park Dabin revealed that he wanted to ask a favor from him. Later on, in a green forest, Wak Pilsong recalled how the color green indicated a D-rank hunter. This technique pleased him, as it made it easy to assert one's rank. With that, he began to recall how he was intrigued by Park Dabin, asking him to investigate while partaking in a D-rank raid. The S-rank hunter, who revealed that an ongoing investigation was making him worry, stated that the hunter's presence would greatly calm him despite not being able to reveal the details. Wak Pilsong accepted to help, as the tall one affirmed that he wanted to use his immense power in case things went south. But just as he began to wonder about the situation that might require his powers, a rude person bumped into him. The thug's friend was then triggered when the young-looking man affirmed that one should apologize in such cases, before flexing his friend's power, stating he was almost C-rank, and that the new D-ranks like our hero should fear him. The thug was no other than the former D-rank hunter Wang Scorpion, chief of the Scorpion Gang, who stated that our green-looking hero should run away while he still could. The three of them then continued on their way, laughing at the annoyed old man. Encountering these three insolent hunters made Wak Pilsong think of how there will always be those who judge people based on a first glance, when suddenly a calm-looking man asked him not to give the thugs any thought, as they were known for harassing newcomers. Our old protagonist was then left shocked when the man named Kim Cheolman asked him for his name, assuming him to be a student. Upon learning the young-looking one's name, the man pointed out how he must be named after the legendary hunter. Kim Cheolman then asked our hero for his age, so he revealed to be 80 years old. But after realizing his slip-up, Wak Pilsong claimed to be approaching 18 years old. This excited the man, as the protagonist had the same age as his son, and he assumed that raids must be quite profitable for young ones to partake in them. As Kim Cheolman began to talk about his son who spends his time playing video games, the old hero found it ironic that if he had a child back then, he would be as old as him. Just then, the both of them were approached by an extrovert and her introverted friend. The one with orange hair introduced herself as the 24-year-old hunter Park Ji-hun and her Shay friend as Lee Yoonji. She then approached our hero, picking up his curiosity, before kissing him on the cheek, and affirming to the startled, blushing old man that this was her way of greeting people. Just then, the middle-aged man called out to our hero, affirming that youth feels great, which our hero found ironic as he was old enough to be the girl's grandfather. When suddenly, another voice calling his name caught his attention. It turned out to be a smiling man in a suit armed with a katana, and when asked about his name, the man introduced himself as the one in charge of this raid, the C-rank hunter Kim Taejin. With that, the presentations were made. Kim Taejin then asked our hero if he was someone close to the S-rank hunter, as he doesn't usually recommend hunters. Wak Pilsong claimed to be a distant relative of Park Dabin. With that, this C-rank hunter ordered those under him to regroup, as he would be giving a summary before entering the dungeon. Kim Taejin presented himself to the men as the leader of this expedition, before stating that most of them were D-rank newcomers, and that he believed their class of hunters had great potential for growth. The C-rank hunter even revealed that he was aware that some of them would soon join him in his rank, and explained that despite not being lethal, D-rank dungeons were hard to foresee, which is why he affirmed that all must obey him in order to ensure a fruitful raid. One of the thugs stated that this was exaggeration, as this was a mere D-rank dungeon, making the old man scold him by pointing out that preparation was the key to success, which angered the redhead, when suddenly someone stopped them. Wang Scorpion affirmed that they should go easy on our hero as he had no experience regarding dungeons, and that more experienced hunters should be able to assert the danger. This made the thug and his minion look like buffoons in the eyes of the legendary hunter. With that, the summary came to an end. It was now time for the party to cross the gate. The sun was shining brightly. The magical gate was the entrance of this D-rank dungeon, and upon entering it, our hero and his allies found themselves in what seemed like a desert, and while Hunter Park joked about regretting not bringing sunscreen, Wang Scorpion affirmed that he wanted to end this as fast as possible in order to enjoy a refreshing drink. Whack Pilsong began to take off his jacket upon entering the annoying desert. The party leader affirmed that they would commence once everyone was inside. Our hero noticed the Scorpion gang casually making plans for when the raid was over, making him scold them for their reckless behavior. This made him recall a scene from his past, where a young Park Dabin was exhausted. The young man affirmed that the raid was more challenging than expected, having anticipated an easy one due to the small size of the gate. So the old man affirmed that they should always be on their guard when raiding for this exact reason. Whack Pilsong, sitting on the slain boss, then affirmed to the young one that he should always obey him, which he promises to do. Back to the present, a hero recalled how everyone used to be anxious when it came to dungeons, as they only assessed their difficulty based on how big the entrance was. Yet now, as it was easy to assert the exact difficulty of the dungeon, the hunters seemed more laid back. Seeing how the world had turned out, the hero decided to ask the C-rank something which piqued his interest. Whack Pilsong asked about the difficulty of this class of dungeons, making the man assume that this was the first dungeon he had entered. The party leader explained that D-rank dungeons were perfect for D-rank hunters, before reassuring him that C-rank hunters like him are always present in case of problems. This made the legendary hero point out that they seemed to have everything planned out. The party leader was taken by surprise when the young-looking man asked him about a scenario where the dungeon was underestimated. Just then, Wang Scorpion addressed the two of them, and affirmed to our hero that no one would blame him for running away, seeing how scared he seemed. One of his thugs mockingly asked him not to put too much pressure on the newcomer. The C-rank hunter reassured our hero once again that they were perfectly safe, as the danger was already asserted with a specific meter by the association, what you structure is safe raid. Yet our hero was still not convinced, making the man add how the dungeon meter had been in use for half a decade now, and how it never falsely measured the true difficulty of any dungeon. Whack Pilsong asked if this was true, which the man confirmed, while the soon-to-be C-rank began to complain about how annoying beginners were. With that, the old man began to scold the Hothead. The angered Scorpion boss grabbed our hero by the shirt and dared him to talk back one more time. The protagonist advised him to always be discreet while raiding. With that, the man let out a loud laugh, before pointing out how newbies should be terrified in their first raid, assuming that this was the case of our hero. Whack Pilsong then asked him if he was aware of the reason behind his advice, when suddenly the party was spotted by a giant purple serpent. The monster's arrival startled the hunters. Scorpion was left terrified. With that, the monster prepared itself, before charging at him. But just then, and with a swift slash, the hero decapitated the monster with a single strike, quickly putting an end to its misery. This left the soon-to-be C-rank hunter baffled, as it all happened at an incredible speed. With that, Whack Pilsong affirmed to the man that he should take his advice, as loud hunters will always be the favored targets of the monsters. As the protagonist walked away, the man grew frustrated, unable to accept that he was getting corrected by a young man. The concerned hunter then turned to the party leader and asked him if the snake was truly a D-rank, seeing how she had never seen a monster this powerful. The man found it odd, as D-ranks were usually giant dogs or insects, and seeing how this purple worm was most definitely a C-rank, the leader began to grow worried. Meanwhile, in another location inside the desert dungeon, the young one asked Gilwoo about their next course of action. He reassured his friends, stating that patience was the only way to salvation. The girl proposed to ask the grown-ups for help, but after thinking about it, Gilwoo refused, seeing how lethal this dungeon was and how the adults weren't trustworthy. As the both of them kept on arguing, a purple presence heard them. The young hunters then heard a creepy scream, and were left startled as they were found by a giant snake. As the beast locked on its prey, both of them were filled with fear and horror, letting out a loud scream as they were now under a hungry monster's mercy. Meanwhile, our hero began to walk in the scorching desert. The party leader who was leading the way seemed anxious and deeply plunged into his own thoughts, as he recalled how the girl described the monster as something above D-rank. Despite his best efforts, the man had a hard time relaxing as the serpent looked like a C-rank monster. Before turning to look at our hero, the man began to think of how the dungeon was surely not above D-grade, as a young man on his first raid defeated it with one slash. Yet then again, there was still a possibility of the dungeon being wrongly labeled. But the man quickly denied the idea, as the meter had never been wrong before. Wang Scorpion, who was covered in sweat, began to grunt. He then burst out and complained to the leader that they walked for half an hour before asking how long until they take a break. Seeing how all seem exhausted, the team leader decided to grant Wang Scorpion his wish. This left the old man disappointed, seeing how the younglings were exhausted by a mere 30-minute walk session. Just then, the Scorpion boss noticed some sort of fog rising, when suddenly the hunter noticed a giant purple snake standing above their heads. Seeing how this serpent seemed more powerful than the first one, the scared party leader asked the men to prepare for battle, speculating it to be the boss. The monster then began to approach the hunters. After taking a look at our hero, the soon-to-be C-rank unsheathed his axe as he recalled how the protagonist put him to shame earlier. To the leader's surprise, Wang Scorpion charged headfirst, affirming that he could kill this snake on his own. The C-rank tried to warn him about the danger, but Wang Scorpion told the others to admire him as he kills the boss. With that, he rushed to the monster, ready to take its life. But upon striking it, Wang Scorpion was baffled upon witnessing how insignificant his strike was against the serpent. Guak Pilsong found the idea of attacking a defending monster utterly pathetic, making him realize how pitiful these hunters' thinking process was. With that, the snake prepared itself to counterattack. Upon seeing this, the man assumed himself to have met his doom. But just as the monster launched its attack, Wang Scorpion found himself being saved by the party leader, who quickly checked up on him. The party leader was relieved to see his party member non-injured. With that, he asked his men to stand down, seeing how this powerful monster was his sole responsibility, considering that he was the only present C-rank. With that, the man in the suit charged at the beast, jumped into the air, and struck it with his katana, but was then left shocked to see that his sword was as ineffective as Wang Scorpion's axe, when suddenly someone screamed to him to target the serpent's head. This left the hunter intrigued, but upon locating the designated spot, the man used the monster's body as a trampoline in order to jump into the air and gain some altitude, as he was determined to slay it. With that, the party leader was finally able to decapitate the monster with a single slash. And just like that, the giant snake was defeated, leaving everyone relieved and overjoyed. Guak Pilsong then approached the victor in order to check up on him, so the man affirmed being unharmed. The party leader then gave credit to the young-looking one for this victory over the boss, as due to him he was able to survive the serpent and slay it with ease. Hunter Park then asked if this marked the end of the raid, which the party leader assumed it to be. But as worry filled her eyes, the girl pointed out how nothing unusual was happening. This made the party leader realize how odd it is, seeing how they should be getting a notification upon killing the boss. But just then, the man realized in panic, as two more purple atrocities appeared from behind the rocks, that against all sense of logic, as this was a D-rank dungeon, the monster that he, who was a C-rank, barely defeated wasn't even the boss. Just then, our hero affirmed that the explanation was obvious, pointing out how this dungeon was far above D-rank, while the party leader was still in denial about the association miscalculating the dungeon's lethality. As he and his men were getting ready for the upcoming battle, the C-rank hunter was left unable to comprehend the odd situation. The middle-aged man then informed the party leader that they had monsters on their six. With that, Kim finally accepted the fact that this dungeon was far above D-rank, and so he ordered the men to flee the scene, thinking of how many risk getting killed, which is why they should escape and get reinforcements. After looking at the man, a smile appeared on Guak Pilsong's face, seeing how responsible this young hunter was. Later on, as they kept on walking, Wang Scorpion found himself out of breath, and so he began to scream at the team leader and called him out for escaping a D-rank dungeon despite his rank. The suited man affirmed to the thug that this dungeon was far above D-rank. Yet the Scorpion boss couldn't believe it, seeing this dungeon had already been labeled D-rank and how our hero easily killed one of its monsters. This made Guak Pilsong scold the thug for being too loud once again, so the angry man affirmed that he wasn't scared of the snakes and that he had just been caught by surprise earlier. Just then, a creepy sound from a nearby cave startled him. All felt alerted, expecting a monster to come out of the darkness, only for the so-called monster to be a human asking for help. The girl, who looked in bad shape, was desperate for help. Hunter Park rushed to check on her. The girl then begged the hunters to rescue her friend, leaving the one holding her confused. This young one explained how she and her friend were ambushed by a giant serpent, and that he got harmed while protecting her, while the team leader wondered about the reason behind a child's presence inside a dungeon, and so he demanded an explanation, seeing how she wasn't a hunter. The girl explained how someone offered them a lucrative part-time job where their main task would be to conceal their presence inside the dungeon. Just then, Scorpion Wang butted in, as he recognized the girl and her friend as infamous tomb raiders, leaving the female hunter confused. This term also intrigued our hero, so the C-rank explained how it refers to individuals that illegally enter dungeons in order to snatch some of its rewards when conquered. Seeing how younglings were putting their lives on the line inside dungeons, the old protagonist was left baffled. With that, the thug accused the children of disturbing the dungeon, implying that it was their fault that such powerful monsters appeared in this D-rank dungeon. The leader affirmed that these were two separate problems, yet the man insisted that they were the cause of the anomalies. When asked about the fate of the tomb raiders, a C-rank hunter affirmed that they should save them at any cost. This angered the Scorpion boss as he affirmed that they shouldn't rescue the children when their own lives were at stake. But before the leader could respond, Whack Pilsong proposed to aid the Tomb Raiders, making the one in the suit affirm that the risks were too high. Yet seeing how they couldn't leave them behind, the hero proposed to go alone in order to appease the scared hunter. Wang Scorpion affirmed that he won't oppose his choice to freely walk to his end. With that, the young-looking one instructed the leader to evacuate the dungeon while he saved the children. Seeing how Whack Pilsong demonstrated advanced skills and even located the snake's weak point, the team leader decided to have faith in him. With that, the leader decided to follow the hero's will. Whack Pilsong then stated that he would carry the injured one. The girl then turned to him and asked with a worried expression if he would truly help. So with a reassuring smile, he affirmed that he would rescue both of them. And so the team leader ordered the men to hit the road. While leaving, the Scorpion gang began to mock our hero for throwing himself into danger. Yet the girl didn't seem to share this feeling, as she was in fact worried that he might get hurt, despite considering it an idiotic game of chance. The team leader had no choice but to comply, seeing how their choices were tightly limited. Shortly after, inside the cave where the injured one was hiding, he began to think of his employers, who lied to them yet blamed himself for trusting the grown-ups. Back then, the man affirmed that his offer was too lucrative, as all they had to do was hide inside a low-risk dungeon and wait for it to be cleared in order to snatch the rewards, yet the young one was still not convinced. The man even affirmed that since they were mere students, no one would arrest them but instead give them a light warning. Upon hearing that this was his golden chance, the young man finally agreed. Back to the present, the injured one was worried about his friend Yun-Su, when suddenly, he noticed something approaching. The terrified boy quickly grabbed a branch, but as he expected the worst, the one arriving turned out to be human. Gilwu was finally reunited with Unsu. The boy was then intrigued when a mysterious individual entered the cave. The girl presented our hero as the hunter that came to aid them, but Gilwu had a hard time believing it as he looked too young to be one. This triggered the old man, who slapped the boy on the head. Whack Pilsong affirmed to the insolent one that a child's place was at home studying, not inside a dangerous dungeon scavenging. Unsu revealed to him to flood her home, which is why she took this job, as she was desperate for money and shelter. The old man was angered by the actions of the employers, seeing how they risk mere children for an easy profit. With that, Whack Pilsong proposed to the Tomb Raiders to catch up with his group. But just then, a giant purple snake entered the cave and found them. This left the children terrified. The boy was certain that they were able to shake it off, and seeing how he was too injured to escape, he urged the two of them to flee without him, yet Unsu refused to leave him. So Whack Pilsong affirmed that he wouldn't be abandoning anyone. The boy urged our hero to escape with his friend, making the old man point out his boldness despite his young age. Whack Pilsong affirmed that it was the adult's responsibility to take care of the children, which is why he affirmed that he shall leave none behind as he charged at the giant monster while the children watched in astonishment. Meanwhile, back at the fleeing party, the thug began to complain about how they were trapped in a dungeon where they weren't even able to fight. The team leader reassured the man by informing him that the exit was right ahead. He then began to think of Whack Pilsong, who might struggle to save the children. This doubt made him question his own decision to trust our hero. Kim Chiulman then began to search the area for the gate, when suddenly, he noticed something surprising. So he quickly called the team leader, as this matter had to do with the gate. The exit was disappearing from the dungeon, leaving the hunters utterly shocked. Upon seeing this, Wang Scorpion demanded a plan from the party leader. Kim Taejin began to think of how the dungeon's entrance appeared 3 days ago, and that its disappearance was a sign that the dungeon would soon malfunction. Yet seeing how it takes about 7 days for it to happen, the man assumed that they should be good for now. With that, the party leader began to think that the Tomb Raiders were truly the reason behind these odd events, when he was suddenly snapped back to reality by his party members asking him for a plan. So Kim Taejin reassured the men by explaining that the exit would reappear upon closing the dungeon, which the Scorpion boss found ridiculous, as there was no way for D-rank hunters to clear a dungeon that far surpasses their rank. With that, Kim Chiulman realized that failure meant being stuck forever in this dungeon. The party leader then explained that the gate would also open when the dungeon closed, which was a risky plan but possibly their only way to survive, before suggesting to cool off and calmly assess the situation. Just then, the thug noticed something. The hunters found themselves being surrounded by the giant serpents, which left them horrified. As the first one charged at them, the party leader ordered the men to ready themselves. Kim Taejin had counted 5 opponents, so he theorized that even D-ranks could clear them with a solid plan while targeting the monsters' heads. With that, the party leader asked the team to help him, while Scorpion Wang began to fear the worst. With that, Kim Taejin charged at the giant beasts, and so he jumped at the first one and decapitated it with one swing of his blade, when suddenly he was attacked by the second snake, leaving him no choice but to try and block the attack. Just then, a hunter decided to aid him by throwing a fire spell at the monster that even he had to dodge. Yet this attack only angered the beast, who turned to the mage. So the swordsman affirmed to the creature that this fight was between them, before taking its head. With that, the second snake was defeated. Kim Taejin counted 3 remaining serpents, And despite how challenging this task seemed, he was certain that it was possible. Wang Scorpion felt relieved as these monsters weren't as strong as they appeared. But just then, he noticed a giant three-headed purple snake standing right behind him. The party was left horrified as they speculated that this was the final monster, while the team leader related its shocking arrival to the anomalies occurring. With that, the great beast attacked the hunters with its powerful tail. The scorpion boss found himself in front of the monster as his gang members begged him for help, but in the end, the thug chose to run away and leave his friend behind. Just then, the betrayed one noticed the monster getting closer, but before it could devour him, it was mysteriously shot by a projectile, by none other than Hunter Park. With that, the girl found herself being the target of the dungeon's boss, but in fact, she deliberately played the bait to give the C-rank hunter an opening. Kim Taejin was able to score a clean hit, feeling optimistic that only 2 heads remained, but just then, something intriguing happened. The freshly inflicted wound on the monster quickly closed. To the man's surprise, a new head was just created. With that, the monster was back at full strength. This made Kim Taejin speculate that this one's weak spot wasn't its head. He was then caught off guard by the tri-headed snake's powerful tail, slamming him into the wall and making him cough blood. The markswoman was shocked to see the C-rank hunter down, when fear suddenly filled her eyes as the boss monster began to target her, causing her to scream in panic. But just as she was about to be devoured, someone grabbed onto her and took her out of harm's way. The savior then began to run away while carrying Hunter Park. As he checked up on her, the young lady began to blush at the sight of her savior. After finally arriving to the scene, Guak Pilsong asked his hard-working allies to let him deal with the 3-headed atrocity. Hunter Park was left impressed by our hero, who asked her if she was harmed in any way, but the girl quickly denied. Just then, our hero was called by the beaten-up team leader, who asked him about the Tomb Raiders and the reason he wasn't with them. Guak Pilsong affirmed that the children were unharmed, before turning to the bigger issue, stating that the dungeon will go crazy, seeing how the boss left his usual spot and the gate had disappeared. Kim Jae-han apologized to the young-looking one, stating that the fault was his, but the protagonist reassured him that this wasn't the case, as this problem was bigger than a C-rank party leader. Guak Pilsong then praised the young one for his efforts and good work. With that, the hero and the monster stood face to face. The protagonist affirmed that it was now his turn to fight, and so Guak Pilsong charged at the beast. Rushing to the beast, the hero swiftly escaped the deadly jaws before cutting the head off. Just then, the C-rank hunter revealed to him the boss's ability to regrow its heads. The hero was shocked to see it firsthand. Guak Pilsong scolded the man for not telling him sooner about this irritating ability. This made the girl lose hope and succumb to despair. Even the team leader was beginning to think that they were going to die here. Guak Pilsong then asked them to have faith, recalling the saying that implies that giving up only applies when counting cabbages. This saying left the girl baffled by its mediocrity. The team leader agreed with the young-looking one, as they should all stay optimistic and keep on fighting to the end. Kim Jae-han declared that he would be helping our hero, who asked him to take it easy with his injuries. But the team leader claimed to be better than ever after having been healed by our hero. Yet the girl still had her doubts, but decided to lend a hand nonetheless. This pleased our hero, as he asked his allies to hold on to hope, seeing how continuous offense will eventually unveil the monster's weakness. With that, Guak Pilsong asked his allies to support him, and so round 2 began. The purple boss prepared itself to launch an attack, leaving the hunters alerted. Guak Pilsong found himself being attacked by a fire blast. All feared the worst upon witnessing the protagonist tanking this fire attack. But just as the head stopped spouting its fire, Guak Pilsong came out from the fire charging at the monster, affirming that such tricks don't work on him as he charged at it once again. And after multiple precise slashes, the monster was cut to pieces. Neither the middle-aged man nor the C-rank leader were able to believe that this individual was a D rank, seeing how such skills surpassed the D hunter. Just then, our hero noticed something odd, as the monster didn't seem quite finished yet. This regeneration annoyed our hero, who had no idea how to kill the boss. Just then, he noticed something. Guak Pilsong had an idea upon looking at the rocks. With that, the hero finally had a plan of action, and so he jumped his way up the cliff, and once high enough, Guak Pilsong gathered his strength in order to cut a massive boulder in half. The falling rock's target was the giant snake. With that, the dungeon boss was crushed for good. All looked in disbelief, when suddenly, the Hunter party received a message from the system, declaring that the dungeon had been conquered. Hunter Park was unable to believe it. All were overjoyed by this miraculous victory. The team leader felt relieved, as due to our hero's intervention, the team was spared an atrocious end. Just then, the gate of the dungeon reappeared. Guak Pilsong decided to ask his party if someone among them was injured. The C-rank hunter affirmed that they were all saved by his intervention, thinking of how the young-looking one was giving the same vibe as a professional veteran. As he began to admire the prodigy, this one affirmed they should head home. Later that same day, in the Hunter Guild of Blue Sky, the report was being questioned, as it clearly stated that a mere D-rank beginner conquered a dungeon above his rank. This report was presented by the C-rank hunter Kim Taejin, who affirmed that everything he wrote down was no lie, and that they must enroll the young prodigy into the ranks of Blue Sky, seeing how powerful he is. But as he kept on explaining, the one in the chair urged him to stop, stating that even if the dungeon turned out to be above C rank, there was no way for such a prodigy to stay unnoticed up until now. Kim Taejin tried to defend his argument, but the man was having none of it, as he stated that he would act as if this report was never written. A C-rank hunter had no choice but to accept. After this small meeting, the man took a deep breath, before taking a deep breath again and letting out a sigh of relief. The S-rank hunter then asked the one hiding to reveal himself. Gwak Pilsung asked if the party leader had left, which Park Dabin affirmed, stating that his lies should have shaken him off. The S-rank hunter then affirmed that the fuss caused by the protagonist would surely attract attention. But Gwak Pilsung affirmed that he had no choice, as he only rejoined to save the young lives that are always at stake. Revealing his bafflement, the S-rank hunter asked the old man if the report was accurate. Gwak Pilsung confirmed, stating that the association must be aware of its ranking mistakes, using its silence on the matter as proof. Before affirming that this wasn't the only issue at hand, intriguing the tall one. The S-rank hunter was shocked when the hero theorized that the association was the puppet master behind the individuals that used children as tomb raiders. Still unable to believe it, he asked the protagonist about his sources. So the old man revealed that he recently attacked the tomb raiders' base. This made Park Dabin grow frustrated, as the higher-ups will surely never admit their sins, seeing how their word and power are drawn from their strength and imposing presence. Gwak Pilsung found this ego to be highly possible. The old man then asked the young one if he would keep silent on the association's crimes. So the S-rank hunter explained how they didn't possess the necessary evidence to act, affirming that its growth would surely surpass our hero's expectation, and that they shouldn't be reckless when fighting such a dangerous foe, while recalling how his master always taught him to be careful. With that, the protagonist proposed to review the archives of the dungeon raids, but was quickly left intrigued when the man stated that it wouldn't be possible. Park Dabin reminded the old man that he was labeled as D-rank, before reminding him that the records were only accessible by C-rank hunters or above. Gwak Pilsung expressed how exhausting the secret identity is, yet the S-rank hunter found it to be the ideal opportunity as he handed our hero a piece of paper. Upon reading it, the young-looking man was shocked. The next day in the Hunter Association, a massive line was formed inside the building. The man instructed those taking on the promotion exam to quietly form a line. Between the contestants stood a nervous Park Ji-hoon, who was pretty anxious as this would be her first promotion exam while doubting her own ability to pass it, yet she was convinced that the experience would be worth it. The girl then began to wonder if our hero would also take the exam. She then began to fantasize about a fated meeting between the two of them. But she quickly shut down the idea as she found her own thoughts to be ridiculous. Suddenly someone appeared in front of her, stating how the hunters here were many. Park Jae-hoon screamed at the man for cutting ahead of her in line, and so the hunter turned to her in order to showcase his color. This shocked the girl, as red meant that he was a B-rank hunter. The man then pointed out how she was still wearing a green bracelet. The annoyed markswoman affirmed that he didn't have the right to cut in line just because he was of a higher rank. So the B-rank hunter affirmed that in their working field, power determined everything. The man then stated that this was an unchangeable reality. Just then he noticed that Hunter Park was to his taste, which left her confused. As he grabbed her by the shoulder, the red asked the green if she was seeing anyone at the moment, when suddenly someone grabbed him by the wrist. The old man demanded to know the reason behind this mess in such a crowded place. The girl was shocked to meet our hero once again in these circumstances. This made the B-rank hunter assume that the both of them were already dating. And while Gwak Pilsung was left confused, the markswoman denied this claim. Just then the man noticed that our hero was also wearing a green bracelet, and so he tried to assert dominance by asking the protagonist if he saw his red badge. Our hero affirmed that he was aware of the man's rank. This triggered the B-rank hunter, as despite the difference in ranks, the young-looking man dared to oppose him. The hunter tried to free himself, and was left utterly shocked upon seeing that Gwak Pilsung was restraining him with just one hand. This made him doubt the fact that our hero was an actual D-rank. Just then someone asked Baek Sang-hyuk to stop this scene. This triggered the B-rank, who began to scream at the one calming him down, only for it to be the security guard. As the men forcefully escorted him outside, they asked Baek Sang-hyuk to not make a fuss. The B-rank affirmed that he would never forget their faces, making him look like a buffoon in the eyes of the old man. Hunter Park thanked our hero, who asked her if she would try to pass the exam for rescuing her. The girl confirmed her participation, as promotion exams were rare events that were worth a try, before pointing out how she might not have what it takes to pass the exam. Just then the old man placed his hand on her shoulder. Gwak Pilsung reassured the markswoman by stating that she would do fine before asking her to only do what she could. The girl received the advice with a blushing face and a loud and fast heartbeat. Despite not being into those younger than her, Gwak Pilsung gave her the impression of a grown man. With that, the protagonist decided to give her a gift. To her surprise, it turned out to be yokan, an Asian dessert greatly liked by those of a certain age, which the hero had originally planned to eat but decided to offer to her instead. According to Gwak Pilsung, eating sweet food should help her appease her anxiety. With that, the protagonist went on his way while wishing her fortune on her exams. After looking at the unexpected gift, the girl pointed out the strange taste, stating that the hero's taste resembled that of an old man as she took a bite out of the yokin. At the same time, on the nearby balcony, the mysterious woman expressed her disappointment, seeing how spectacular a fight between the hero and the B rank would have been. In any case, she was certain that they would be meeting again. Meanwhile, the B rank hunter grew frustrated, seeing how inhuman the strength of the D rank was. The C rank hunter Kim Seon-jun introduced himself as the D rank promotion examinator. He informed the candidates that this session aimed to give them the necessary information on the exam process. With that, Kim Seon-jun began his explanation. The first part will consist of one-on-one duels between the D rank hunters. One wins by defeating their opponent or making them surrender, and in case of dangerous incidents, the examiner will intervene to keep the exam a safe environment. The C rank hunter then added that the winner would be evaluated by a supervisor assigned to the desired rank through a duel. This made the hunters realize that failing to pass the sparring match or defeat the supervisor would result in failing the exam. But the C rank hunter reassured them by explaining that they could still pass if the supervisor found their skills worthy of the desired rank, regardless of the results. With that, he wished them all good luck. Upon hearing this, a tall person in the crowd began to tremble with excitement. Wang Scorpion was thrilled to finally have the chance to enter the C rank. After his last raid, his magic power had mysteriously skyrocketed, which made him confident that he could rival most C rank hunters. This made the thug feel grateful toward our hero, as this power was a result of the hero's prowess during the last dungeon, seeing how it would finally grant him his long-awaited promotion. But just as he checked on his opponent, he was left baffled. It was none other than the Prodigy himself who cheerfully greeted him. Guak Pilson asked Scorpion to go easy on him, and the man immediately realized that victory was impossible. Later, when the markswoman began her sparring match, her opponent was already nearly exhausted, and upon noticing this, she prepared her bow and used the skill Wind Arrow. This terrified her opponent, who, despite his best efforts to block the arrow, was sent flying into the air. With that, the young man was quickly defeated, marking the victory of Park Ji-hyun, who was shocked by her own accomplishment. The markswoman began to wonder about her sudden power boost, when she was approached by Guak Pilsong. Hunter Park asked him if he had already won, to which he confirmed. As the examiner asked his opponent to leave the sparring area, the girl took the opportunity to express how strange the situation felt, which intrigued our hero. According to her, her magic power had grown mysteriously and exponentially. So our hero explained that this sudden power boost was a result of the last raid, which had been above D rank, though she didn't quite understand. Wak Pilson explained to her that killing monsters inside dungeons allows hunters to absorb magic stones and magical power. This meant that the higher the dungeon's rank, the more magic power one gains and the purer the stones are. This made the girl's eyes sparkle with excitement, as it meant clearing harder dungeons would allow her to quickly rise through the ranks. Suddenly, our hero snapped her back to reality in anger. The irritated man angrily stated that lower ranks stood no chance in stronger dungeons, and that it had been a miracle they survived the last raid without casualties. He scolded her, saying that recklessness is a hunter's greatest enemy. As our hero continued ranting, Hunter Park, who had assumed she was older than him, began to feel like she was talking to an old man. Suddenly, a feminine presence approached, asking about the loud noise, and quickly assumed it was a couple's quarrel. While Park Ji-hyun was delighted by the misunderstanding, our hero firmly stated that it was not a quarrel, but a scolding session for a foolish child. This made the markswoman sad, while the protagonist apologized for the trouble. The lady, who found him amusing, quickly recognized him as Guak Pilsong, which shocked our hero. Just then, the crowd recognized the lady as Yu Sun-young, the S-rank hunter, and began to wonder why she was there. The lady then remembered to introduce herself to our hero, stating that she was the one responsible for organizing this exam. This made Guak Pilsong quickly realize that she was from the association, and he asked if she needed something from him. Yu Sun-young stated that there was a rumor spreading about a D-rank beginner who had closed a dungeon on his own. This made the crowd start whispering and speculating about whether the rumor was about Guak Pilsong, and whether it was true or false. This annoyed our hero, as he didn't want to attract attention, so he asked the S-rank if she had come to see him. To his surprise, Yu Sun-young did something unexpected by offering him the chance to ascend to B-rank. She said that if the rumors were true, then her offer should sound tempting. And while our indifferent hero quickly refused, the overexcited markswoman immediately accepted on his behalf. And so Hunter volunteered to be his opponent, remembering that candidates had to fight at B rank to become one themselves. Guak Pilson recognized the man as the one from the line earlier. The B-rank hunter Bak Sang-hyuk expressed how surprised he was to learn that our protagonist was the rumored Prodigy. After recognizing this hunter, the crowd began to whisper about how he was close to A rank and how his presence meant that they didn't want our hero to skip a rank. The S-rank hunter then thanked the man for his generous volunteering, as our hero affirmed that he didn't want to reach B rank yet. But just then, he noticed the hunter going for an unexpected thrust, which he barely managed to dodge. After landing on the ground, Hunter Bake stated that the young-looking man might have what it takes to enter B rank, seeing how he managed to evade. This annoyed the old man, seeing how extreme the B rank was when testing his skills for a test he didn't want to take. Upon hearing this, the hunter expressed his disappointment in the candidate for giving up at the very start before affirming that skipping C rank wasn't as easy as he might think. The B rank hunter affirmed that he would do everything he could in order to keep the hero from his promotion, even if it meant injuring him beyond reason or even killing him. Yu Sun Young began to think about how this man was said to be close to A rank and how he would have been of great help if it weren't for his personality. This situation also made her wonder about the Prodigy's reaction. With that, Guak Pilsong wondered out loud if there was a way to make the B rank's personality match his skills, which Hunter Beck didn't quite understand. Bak Sang Hyuk was left even more confused and demanded an explanation as our hero kept thinking out loud, trying to come up with a plan since physical discipline didn't seem to work. Guak Pilsong vaguely declared to be reflecting, before firmly affirming that he was trying to come up with a way to discipline him, which left the hunter irritated. Upon hearing this, the B rank was determined to make the protagonist suffer, and so he charged at him with his skill, Mana Spear. Yet our unfazed hero didn't try to dodge, but instead grabbed the spear, to its wielder's bafflement. All were shocked upon witnessing this surprising feat. With that, the old man had finally made up his mind, as he decided to fix the B rank hunter's behavior after beating him up. Upon seeing this, all were left silent. Hunter Bake couldn't be more irritated by the one he found prideful, so our hero decided to show him whether he truly overestimated himself or not. Just then, it caught the B rank's attention. His opponent's presence alone was enormous and terrifying, so he instinctively tried to put some distance between the two of them, while being unable to fully comprehend what he had just felt, seeing how facing this hunter felt like being at the mercy of a beast. Just then, he remembered that the S-rank hunter was present. Seeing how he was being humiliated by a beginner, the man decided to use the strengths he was saving for his promotion exam, thus applying to himself 3 physical buffs. Yu Sun Young was happy to finally see him fight at full strength, making her expect great things from him. Seeing how his buffs would end in 5 minutes, the B-rank hunter realized that he was racing against the clock. But just as he was about to fight at full strength, he realized that our hero had already closed the distance and was ready to flick his fingers. Wak Pilson then affirmed that only physical discipline was effective against impolite children, before knocking the young one with a mere flick on the forehead. Bak Sang Hyuk was left in a state of shock and pain, once again unable to comprehend the recent events. But just then, the hero affirmed that the punishment wasn't over yet, as he sent him flying once again with a gesture of his fingers, leaving him to fall once on the ground. Wak Pilsong then asked the young one to just surrender, but the prideful B-rank was determined to continue as he swung his spear, which the old man easily managed to dodge. This didn't surprise the protagonist, as he was expecting Hunter back to need a longer beatdown session. Just then, the fight was stopped by the S-rank, who affirmed to the B-rank that the outcome of the fight was obvious. But Hunter Bake wouldn't accept it, as he was still determined to fight. Yu Sun Young then sighed and stated how unattractive determined men were, before delivering a powerful kick to the B-rank's guts. The S-rank then asked the B-rank to leave with his dignity, seeing how he gave it his all, before turning to Guak Pilsong with a cheerful expression and declaring that she was certain of his victory. This unexpected trust intrigued our hero, so Yu Sun Young affirmed in a flirty way that she only chooses the best of men, while the markswoman watched in horror. The S-rank then proposed they continue their conversation privately inside her lab. Our hero casually agreed, and while the S-rank hunter was pleased by his response, the D-rank markswoman was left filled with rage. Shortly after, the lady asked her guest to excuse her messy workspace. Yu Sun Young then offered Guak Pilsong some refreshments from the mini fridge, stating that he might not like them as they were all chosen according to her personal taste. After taking a sip of his drink, the old man asked the young lady the reason behind this private conversation. The S-rank hunter decided to get straight to the point and invited the protagonist to join her in the association, leaving him utterly shocked. According to the scientists, their organization is always trying to recruit promising new members. Yet our hero is left confused as this prestigious offer was being made to someone who had just gone from D rank to B rank. Yu Sun Young affirmed that she had ulterior motives, and so she grabbed the veil placed on the table and lifted it, revealing a mysterious machine that left the old man confused. The S-rank hunter explained to our clueless hero that this was a dungeon rating meter. Our hero grew alert as she explained how this machine allowed the association to grow stronger. This meter enabled hunters to enter raids matching their ranks, unlike the past when a great number of men and resources were needed due to dungeons having unknown ranks. The scientist then pointed out to our hero how he must be aware that the device wasn't perfect, which confirmed to him that the association knew about its flaws. Yu Sun Young affirmed that the probability of misjudgment was small, but not impossible, before asking our hero to consider a scenario where hunters were aware of this small risk. Wak Pilsong affirmed that weak hunters would think twice before entering raids, knowing their lives were at stake. The scientist agreed that such a reaction was very likely and that it would lead to a significant decrease in the already small number of hunters, which would cause numerous negative consequences, all due to a very small chance of miscalculation. Yet Guak Pilsong argued that everyone needed to be aware of this small error, since it could lead hunters to fall prey to powerful monsters. But according to the scientists, the logical choice was to sacrifice a few lives for the good of the many. This response triggered our hero, who stated that hunters should only give their lives of their own free will, and that it would be wrong to let them die for an unknown cause. With that being said, the scientist realized that her guest had rejected her offer. Wak Pilsung asked her to pass his words to her superiors. He asked her to insult them on his behalf as he made his exit. Despite admiring the hunter's boldness, the lady was determined to show him that righteousness would surely lead to his downfall. Wak Pilsung exited the building with an exhausted expression, thinking about how his former student would be irritated upon hearing how his day had gone. Just then, a man noticed our hero, leaving him intrigued as he approached. Wak Pilsung recognized the man, who gave him a small smile. Meanwhile, a file was handed to the master, who praised the man for his good work. The boss then asked if this was the file of the Prodigy who handled an entire dungeon alone. The man confirmed it before adding that he had just entered B rank after defeating Bak Sang Hyuk. This file belonged to the one called Wak Pilsung, a name that pleased the master. The C rank hunter had brought him to his superior. As the hunter introduced the Prodigy in his report to the man in charge and explained how he had skipped C rank, the hero did his best not to look at the angry S-rank hunter. The hero felt intimidated by his student's anger as he mentioned how much popularity his master had gained. The S-rank hunter then asked to speak privately with the Prodigy. Hunter Kim happily left the room for the two of them. With that, the infuriated S-rank hunter asked the old man for some explanations. After hearing what had happened, the student pointed out that his master had been tricked by Yu Sun Young. This left our hero intrigued. According to Park De-bin, the woman in question was one of the newly recognized S-ranks and an important figure within the association. And he stated that the most rational explanation for her proposal was that she wanted to recruit someone who was aware of the meter's defect, implying that his B-rank promotion trial was just a way to make it seem professional, and that she would have surely silenced him if he were to lose, as this was her way of doing things. The S-rank hunter then stated that his refusal to join must have irritated her, seeing how it went against her plan. Wak Pilsung proudly took credit for this refusal. Yet Park De-bin affirmed that this lady was persistent, which made him anxious about her next move. With that being said, Park De-bin invited his old master to join his guild. Wak Pilsung quickly and immediately declined. This response had caught the man off guard, making him insist on how being alone would only put him in danger, and how Blue Sky was one of the finest 5 guilds in the country and could very well protect him. Yet our hero remained unfazed. Before deciding to give his response, Wak Pilsung affirmed that he was the legendary hunter who didn't need anyone's protection and who would never be tricked by the association. Upon hearing this, Park De-bin affirmed that he had already been tricked, making the old man claim that he wasn't taking it seriously. With that, the S-rank hunter let out a disappointed sigh as he decided to respect the old master's wish. Park De-bin asked the old man to be cautious, making the B-rank hunter ask him to have faith. After that, as he made his way to the exit, our hero was approached by a girl. This was none other than Park Ji-hoon, who tired herself while searching for him. The markswoman proudly presented her C-rank badge to our hero. She proudly affirmed to have successfully passed her promotion exam. Wak Pilsung then congratulated her, as she affirmed that he was the reason behind her success. The girl was then startled when asked if this was the only reason she wanted to see him. And so with a red face, she claimed that she only wanted to thank him for giving her the needed courage, and that she searched for a while upon hearing that he was with the C-ranks. The markswoman then tried to change the topic by asking our hero if he came here after being invited into the Blue Sky Guild. Wak Pilsung affirmed that this wasn't the case, as he planned on staying guildless, which shocked the girl. Just then, someone approached our hero. This individual was a shady hunter named Li Huan, who introduced himself as part of the human resources of the Northern Light Guild. The name intrigued our hero, so Li Huan explained how their guild, ranked as the 11th best, was interested in recruiting their talented hero. Upon seeing Wak Pilsung's reaction, the man affirmed that they truly were number 11, before pointing out how our hero, who stayed silent, still hadn't joined any guild and asked if he had anything in mind. But to his shock, the Prodigy affirmed that he would like to work on his own. With that, our hero decided to make his leave. In panic, Li Huan stopped Wak Pilsung and asked him to at least attend the presentation session before refusing, which piqued Park Ji-hoon's interest. Li Huan explained that Northern Light was making a presentation in order to make itself known by hunters, and that they would be gifting C-rank weapons to those who attended. The markswoman was left excited upon hearing the free weapons, before asking what the guild had to gain from such a generous act, making Li Huan claim that it aimed to persuade the hunters to join while improving the guild's reputation. This left Wak Pilsung baffled, while his friend affirmed that they should immediately check the event. After arriving, the overly excited girl pointed out how natural it was to see so many people inside the 11th best guild, while our tired hero complained about the fact that she had dragged him up with her. Park Ji-hyun affirmed that this would let them get a free weapon, which our hero didn't find worth the trouble. So the annoyed girl explained how she just wanted a free item after being promoted, as our hero pointed out how odd this giveaway was. Yet the markswoman affirmed that there was nothing suspicious, seeing how Northern Light was one of the best guilds. This made our baffled hero realize how simple the girl truly was and how odd this situation was. Shortly after, Hunter Park was intrigued by the room they were asked to wait in, as it was completely empty, when suddenly a presence began to laugh out of nowhere. This was none other than Li Huan welcoming them. And just as Guak Pilsong demanded an explanation, he found himself being surrounded by a bunch of armed men along with Hunter Park. The shady men then declared the start of the enrolling process. Now in this odd situation, our hero demanded an explanation, stating that they couldn't just force them to join the Northern Light. Yet Li Huan claimed that no one would be hurt if the guild application papers were signed. Guak Pilsong asked what would happen in case of refusal. So the shady man snapped his fingers and stated how bad things would get. As all the dudes prepared themselves to attack, Li Huan said he would now show him why he needed to agree. With that, Hunter Park began to panic, and to the man's surprise, our hero agreed. Guak Pilsong claimed he would sign the papers. Li Huan was pleased by this outcome. As he handed over the documents, he began thinking of how the powerful curse would be activated upon signing the contract, turning the Prodigy into the Northern Lights puppet. But to his surprise, Guak Pilsong demanded to meet the guildmaster before signing, stating that he should know the man for whom he'd be working. Li Huan agreed, convinced that our hero's unknown plan would never work. With that, the guildmaster was contacted, affirming that he would arrive shortly. The A-rank Ko Yong-hoon, leader of the Northern Light, was pleased with Li Huan's progress. The man then informed our heroes that the guildmaster would arrive soon. Upon seeing the goon's expression, the markswoman apologized to the protagonist for dragging him into this mess. But Guak Pilsong said the fault was his, since Li Huan had come to see him, meaning he was the real target. The frightened girl asked the Prodigy if he was truly going to sign the paper, so he reassured her, saying he would take care of the problem. But despite his words, Park Ji-hyun was still worried, when suddenly, a loud laugh erupted in the room. The guildmaster had just arrived and introduced himself to the protagonist, before welcoming him to the Northern Light as all its members bowed in respect. Li Huan was then shocked to see our hero casually ask Ko Yong-hoon if he was really in charge, causing him to burst out in anger and demand respect for his master, only to be stopped. The A-rank hunter said he didn't mind the young-looking man's behavior and was actually fond of it, before placing his head on his shoulder and saying he had high hopes for our hero. Guak Pilsong asked him if he always lied to people like that, so the guildmaster explained that he only did so for the sake of his guild, which is ranked number 11 nationally. He went on to explain that they couldn't rise higher because they lacked an S-rank member, then pointed out how it was very possible that our hero possessed the potential to become one. That was why he used extreme methods to recruit great talents, stating that their guild would greatly benefit from the Prodigy. With that, the guildmaster welcomed the young man into his ranks and promised him rewards. Guak Pilsong then asked the man if those were his final words, leaving both him and his henchmen shocked. One of the men tried to approach the old man, only for him to grab his hand and strike his face with his elbow. Upon witnessing these reflexes, everyone was left stunned. Li Huan was especially triggered. The old man then pointed out how the Northern Light claimed to be one of the best national guilds and yet forced hunters to enlist. He pointed at their leader and declared that they were all just criminals disguised as hunters. This greatly irritated the shady man, who was enraged by Guak Pilsong's righteous attitude. With that, he decided to teach him some humility by attacking the protagonist with his skill, freezing grass. Upon seeing this attack, the hero felt alerted. Li Huan began to laugh, stating that freezing was exactly what Guak Pilsong deserved. With that being said, the hero used his magic power to shake off the icy skill, leaving its caster utterly baffled. After getting a firm stance on the ground, the hero launched himself at Li Huan, who, in panic, tried to raise his ice defense. Yet Guak Pilsong affirmed it was useless, before delivering a devastating punch to the man's face, leaving him to agonize in pain. Just like that, Li Huan was down. Even though he wasn't a combat type, the guildmaster was still shocked to see an A-rank hunter get knocked out with a single punch, meaning the target had been hiding his true power. After rolling his tongue in annoyance, the leader of the Northern Light ordered his men to charge the protagonist. Just then, one of the thugs tried to take him from behind, only for Guak Pilsong to easily dodge the blade, before hitting him from behind and using him as a stepping stone, in order to kick goon number 2 square in the face. Just like that, 2 hunters were taken down in an instant. But just then, the hero noticed the leader of the thugs ready to strike him down. And so, after dodging the fiery blade, Guak Pilsong decided to put some distance between him and his opponent. Now armed with the legendary tier weapon known as the Fang of the Fire Dragon, the man called out our hero for his behavior. The guildmaster then affirmed that he was sure to win now that he had unsheathed his Fang of the Fire Dragon. Guak Pilsong pointed out how great his weapon seemed. The thug explained that this weapon, which he obtained in an S-rank dungeon, allowed him S-rank-like power. This made the old man scold the young one, seeing how he relied on weapons to make up for his own weakness. Upon hearing this, the annoyed criminal charged at our hero, only for Guak Pilsong to dodge every swing. As the man grew irritated by his inability to strike his target, the old man explained that regardless of the power of his guild or equipment quality, the thug should now be able to see that he was outmatched. Now more annoyed than ever, the A-rank hunter forbade our hero from talking to him in such a manner. With that, Whack Pilsong unsheathed his own sword, and with it easily blocked the thug's fang of the fire dragon, leaving him utterly baffled upon seeing him counter an S-rank weapon with an inferior blade. With that being said, Whack Pilsong decided to physically discipline the criminal. Ko Young-hoon felt alarmed as our hero delivered a devastating punch to his guts. In the past, Ko Young-hoon was shocked to see his member leave his guild. The young man, whom the guildmaster affirmed was their best hunter, stated that he had his own motives. In the past, the thug was animated with passion and hope, yet couldn't stop hunters from leaving his side, and hoped that his good behavior would be met by their return. Just then, a man arrived stating that the strong hunter was now part of their guild, and affirmed that his desire for more power was the reason behind his enlistment. To Ko Young-hoon's surprise, this made him realize that in order to be big, one needed to think big, and that his small dream was meaningless to all. From that day on, the man decided to adopt his shameless ways. Upon seeing talented hunters, he tried to scout them, and in case of rejection, Ko Young-hoon made sure to take his revenge on them, which resulted in the guild quickly becoming number 11 in the country, erasing his feelings of remorse. Back to the present, the guildmaster woke up in front of the tall hunter. Ko Young-hoon demanded to know his identity. To his shock, the one in front of him was the leader of the Blue Sky Guild. This made the man panic as this presence was unexpected. The thug was then surprised by the presence of Whack Pilsong, who had his men unable to move. This made him speculate the protagonist was part of the Blue Sky Guild. Upon hearing this, the annoyed hero smacked the young man on the head. Whack Pilsong affirmed that he wouldn't spare him if he spoke such senseless words again. The S-rank hunter then decided to clarify this situation to the thug, by explaining that the hero wasn't one of his subordinates, which only made Ko Young-hoon even more confused. To his shock, Park Dabin revealed that he owed our hero, which is why he was there to aid him. Seeing how such a powerful guildmaster was in debt to our hero made him wonder about his true identity. Just then, the old man attracted the thug's attention and asked him if they were truly forced to commit such heinous crimes. Ko Young-hoon affirmed that he just wanted his guild to become number 1. The old man asked him if a deceiving and lying organization was truly fit to be called the best. Upon hearing this, the thug affirmed with all of his being that despite knowing how shameless his ways were, it was them that allowed his guild to rise through the ranks. Whack Pilsong asked the man if he had achieved his desired guild, making him grow frustrated. In the end, Ko Young-hoon affirmed that he had no choice, as the current association system favored the grand guilds, forcing him to turn to crime for power. Ko Young-hoon affirmed from the bottom of his heart that as a guild leader, he would do everything he could for his guild to prosper. Upon hearing those words, the men felt moved by their leader's determination. The guildmaster was left shocked when asked if he would change his ways if the association itself changed. Yet the man affirmed that this would never happen, seeing how the association kept gaining more and more importance as the big guilds continued to rise. According to the desperate man, this organization, which stood at the zenith of power, would always remain unchanged. But to his surprise, Whack Pilsong promised change. Ko Young-hoon couldn't believe what he had just heard. The S-rank hunter asked our hero if he had something in mind. With that, the legendary hunter revealed his intention to take down the organization by creating a team. Meanwhile, outside the room, Park Ji-hyun tried her best to eavesdrop on them. The markswoman grew curious about the young man who casually interacted with one of the leaders of the best guilds in the country. On a related note, the girl was shocked to see that the previous party leader was part of Blue Sky, before pointing out how he looked like someone with potential, which intrigued the hunter. Just then, our hero and the guildmaster came out of the room. The C-ranks rushed toward our hero, and while the girl asked him about his true identity, Hunter Kim questioned why he hadn't told him about his connection to his superior, much to the old man's surprise. As the two focused entirely on the protagonist, the tall one observed silently. A few minutes earlier, the student had asked his old master about the fate of the thugs, and to his surprise, Whack Pilsong pointed out that humans need a chance to show their true talent, which is why they should give Ko Young-hoon the opportunity to prove his worth, stating that perhaps he had never been given one before. According to the old man, the guildmaster of Northern Light should have learned a lesson from his scolding. This amused the S-rank hunters as their master hadn't changed even after a decade apart. That same night, someone was working out in a gym room. This someone was a huge man, exhausted from his workout. With that, he finally put his weights down. Just then, a hunter informed his guildmaster that someone from the association was here. This intrigued the muscle-bound man, who began to fear the worst. Just then, the man approached him and introduced himself as Yoon-do Kyun, the leader of the violent crimes team within the association. To Seo Gwang-ho, who was the S-rank hunter and leader of the Grizzly Guild, one of the top 10 guilds in the country. Seo Gwang-ho asked the man to get straight to the point, saying he didn't recall being involved in any recent crimes. To his surprise, the man began to speak of Ko Young-hoon, the leader of Northern Light. Just then, the man grabbed his weight and threw it at the visitor, who remained completely unfazed. Siu Wangho asked Yundu Kyun to choose his words carefully before explaining why such a miserable guildmaster had been brought up, and to his shock, the leader of the violent crimes team revealed that he had been taken down by a hunter of lower rank. The grisly guildmaster was left utterly baffled, as the man said he was now ready to let him explain everything, and as a small smile formed on his face, Siu Wangho became eager to hear the full story. Hunter Kim now found himself in a tough spot, facing a two-headed cyclops. The C-rank charged at the beast and quickly struck it with his sword, making the monster roar in agony. After that, the hunter leaped onto the monster's head and tried to cut down its horn, but it had no effect. This left him irritated. Just then, our hero shouted at him to only target the soft spots. Hunter Kim quickly agreed, while our hero couldn't understand how they had ended up in this situation. Back then, the C-rank had begged the old man to become his master. This request intrigued our hero. Hunter Kim affirmed that, after deep reflection, he had decided to follow Guak Pilsong in order to become a capable hunter like him, which is why he begged once more to be taken in. Yet our hero found it pointless, seeing how the boy already worked under a guild master. So the young one revealed that Park Seok-chuk was always too busy with work, and that he had given full approval for our hero to become his master, leading Guak Pilsong to believe that this had been orchestrated by his former student. With that, the old man decided to take the hunter under his wing, making him burst with excitement and joy. Back to the present fight, the C-rank managed to defeat the twin-headed Cyclops. As his master pointed out his progress, the young one felt grateful. Hunter Kim was happy as the old man declared that at this pace, he would surely reach B rank soon. But as they were caught in their little conversation, the other hunters began to complain about the hero being arrogant and that they were the ones to do all of the work while he calmly observed. This came to our hero's attention as the hunters implied that only luck helped the protagonist skip C rank. But just as Hunter Kim was about to defend his master, the old man stopped him. Guak Pilsong asked him not to mind the gossip of others before stating that they should exit the dungeon they had just conquered. At the same time, a mysterious figure watched them from afar. As the men were being dismissed, someone approached our hero. It was a shy-looking boy who asked our hero if he had truly skipped C rank. And when asked about his curiosity, the young one asked Guak Pilsong to take him under his wing, saying he aspired to be as powerful as him. This left both our hero and his current apprentice confused. Guak Pilsong was shocked and asked the boy if he truly wished to have him as a master despite not knowing him, yet he struggled to reply. Upon seeing this, the old man tried to chase the shy boy away, who didn't even try to resist. Seeing this made our hero question the boy's requests as he gave up so easily. With that, the boy stated that he wouldn't blame him if he refused someone like him as a student. This attitude annoyed our hero. Just then, Hunter Kim suggested accepting the boy's request, stating that he must have his reasons to overcome his anxiety and ask for a master, and that he would be overjoyed to have a sparring partner. But according to Guak Pilsong, both student and teacher's effort mattered, which is why he couldn't teach someone who didn't even want to be his disciple. Yet the boy firmly affirmed that he truly did, only for his confidence to be quickly shut down by the old man's powerful aura. Hunter Kim then urged Guak Pilsong to accept the boy under his wing. And when asked about his desire to help, the C-rank stood firm to our hero's surprise and stated that the guild spirit that Park Dabin taught him implied that they must give anyone who truly wants it a chance. After seeing the sparkle in his student's eyes, the old master had no choice but to let the young one raid with them in the next dungeon. Overwhelmed by thankfulness, the young one affirmed that he would spare no effort. Just then, our hero remembered to ask for his name, so the boy introduced himself as Lee Jong-hwan. After introducing himself, the old one stated that he was looking forward to working with him. Kim Ta-jun then introduced himself to the other disciple and stated that they should be familiar with each other, seeing how much time they will spend together. The overjoyed boy urged the C-rank hunter to treat him well, and as Hunter Kim asked to be called senior, our hero let out a sigh, having decided to grant Lee Jong-hwan his wish if he truly wants to learn. Some days later, inside a dungeon, Guak Pilsong was left baffled by the young one's actions, as he urged him to get out of the way, before saving him from being crushed by the giant monster at the last second. Upon being thanked by the shy one, the protagonist began to grow frustrated, as his student was always distracted, seeing how often these types of incidents had occurred. The shy one asked for forgiveness, as the master burst out in anger, seeing how the young one was a C-rank yet never checked his surroundings before charging in, while Kim Ta-jun tried to calm him down. Lee Jong-hwan apologized once again, as Guak Pilsong wondered about his next course of action regarding the boy. This one was left feeling down and ashamed. As the sun began to set, Lee Jong-hwan found himself facing a giant golem, and so he used magic to enhance his weapon, in order to strike it down, yet it was of no use. But just as the monster was about to counterattack, our hero came in and sliced the creature's arm off. But he wasn't done just yet, as he destroyed its core next. The young one was once again thankful for the save. With that, the old man scolded him once again, seeing how he blindly attacked instead of locating weak spots first, making the young one feel ashamed. And so, after expressing his rage, our hero left the scene, leaving his disciple alone with his low self-esteem. His senior tried to cheer him up by stating that he would do better next raid, but the young man ignored him and stated that he needed some time alone, leaving Hunter Kim concerned about him. As he watched him walk away in silence, later in that same dungeon, the wall was punched in frustration. Li Jianhuan found himself filled with anger. The young man hated the way he was being treated, and just as he began to think about giving up, he quickly shook off the idea, as he only had to support it for a small while. The young one was determined to keep going on. Just then, Hunter Kim informed him that it was time to depart from the dungeon, and with that the boy rushed to rejoin them. After that, in the Blue Sky Guild, our hero began to complain about the huge amount of work. To his annoyed past student, Park Dabin then asked the old man for the reason behind his use of Blue Sky as his resting place. Wak Pilsung explained that an old man like him, whose friends were either dying or had already passed away, had no one else to go to before blaming the S rank for giving him a pupil. Seeing how he spent most of his time there, the tall one asked his master to just join Blue Sky, yet our hero declined once again, stating that joining would severely limit his freedom. The guild master expressed his concern regarding the association's silence about the Northern Lights incidents and his worry about his loner of a master. Park San-chiuk then informed the old one about a rumor that implied he personally attended to his needs. But Guak Pilsung didn't find it disturbing, seeing how they were truly friends. So the tall one clarified by stating that they were rumored to be in a relationship. Upon hearing this, the old man burst out in anger, demanding to know who was behind such ridiculous gossip. According to the man, these rumors were created by his subordinates after seeing how much he cared about him, who was an outsider. With that being said, the student asked the master either join them or stop visiting for a while. The annoyed old man began to think that his age made him an outcast, yet Park Dabin affirmed that it had nothing to do with it. With that, Guak Pilsung made his choice, and declared that he would never set foot in Blue Sky ever again. Just then, the S rank informed him that the Grizzly Guild was rumored to be researching about his past. The name made the hero assume that this guild was similar to Ko Young-hoon and his men. The man confirmed the similarity between the 10th and the 11th, with the only difference being that their master, Seo Wang-ho, was an unpredictable S rank due to his bad reputation. Guak Pilsung affirmed to the Blue Sky leader that he would be alright as he was the legendary hunter. With that, the master made his exit, while the student began to fear the worst. Later that same day, the hero asked if anyone was missing. His two pupils were present. Kim assumed that their presence was due to a dangerous dungeon appearing, while Li Jianhuan was left to his anxiety. The master affirmed that they weren't here to fight, but to bond as a team, which shocked both of them. Upon hearing this, the shy hunter felt relieved. The old man wanted to use this opportunity to learn more about his students after realizing that he barely knew them. His students shyly agreed with him as he affirmed that rest was also an important part of their training. Hunter Kim asked what they had planned for today. After thinking for a while, the old man asked his pupils what younglings did to pass time nowadays, leaving them intrigued. The C-rank hunter revealed that he usually goes on hikes or just plays Go. This pleased Guak Pilsung to see that this board game was still popular, seeing how confident he was in his own skills. But just as Li Jianhuan expressed how boring Go seemed to him, the old one burst out in anger in order to defend his cherished game. Before asking his second disciple about his pastimes, the young one hesitated to respond. Shortly after, in a comic book store, our hero found himself peacefully reading. The old man assumed that comics were what younglings like nowadays, but the boy affirmed that this was just his hobby. The conversation was kept to a minimum, as the old man began to think. The boy felt stress as usual. The hero asked his student about the reason behind him entering the hunter world. After thinking for a while, Li Jianhuan revealed how he liked comic books since he was a child, which is why the appearance of hunters made him happy, seeing how they resembled the heroes of his stories, and so he decided to become one himself in order to live like his beloved heroes. And when he implied that his dream was only that of a child, the old man disagreed and affirmed that there was no sin in such a fantasy. The student was shocked upon hearing the master call his aspirations beautiful. Just then, the protagonist was noticed by no other than Park Ji-hyun. Earlier, the girl grew frustrated while reading a comic book, seeing how this had no meaning at all. The hunter couldn't prevent herself from thinking about the mid-looking hero. His cool behavior while raiding doesn't excuse the fact that she was attracted to him. As for her, our hero felt different, seeing how he reminded her of her dear grandfather from her childhood. And while wondering what he might be doing now, the marksman excused herself in order to go refresh. Park Ji-hyun longed to see our hero. Just then, she saw him there. Guak Pilsung turned around and was pleased to suddenly meet the marksman in such a place. When asked about the reason behind his presence, the old one explained how he was doing some team bonding. This coincidence made the girl feel quite fortunate. Li Jianhuan asked our hero about his ties with a pretty lady. Hunter Park was surprised upon hearing him imply that the two of them were dating, and quickly denied the claim with a smiling, blushing face. Guak Pilsung affirmed that she was just a mere acquaintance. The shy boy then introduced himself to the girl with red cheeks, only for her to reply with an upset tone which he didn't quite understand. Just then, Dronzer came to check on her friend only to find that she had company. Guak Pilsung quickly greeted the old party member, who proposed to her friend to go on their way. Seeing how she seemed in a hurry, a hero waved them goodbye. Yet Hunter Park didn't want to part ways like that, and with that, she invited the three of them to join them at the karaoke, claiming that the more the merrier. But just as Guak Pilsong was about to decline in order to continue his reading session, the overexcited boy immediately agreed, seeing how this was an important part of youth according to him. Before asking his senior if he didn't mind, yet Hunter Kim didn't seem to have any objections. Shortly after at the karaoke, as the five of them made themselves comfortable, Hunter Park began to regret her invite. But just then, she decided to change her mindset and use this chance to build a deeper connection with her crush. Our hero was then invited to sing a duo with the girl, but the old one declined, stating that he had never heard these songs, making his student take the invite in his place. This made Park Ji-hyun grow frustrated, seeing how her plan had failed. She then tried the same scheme, only this time she would sing whatever he picked. Guak Pilsong opted for a song named Return My Youth and enjoyed singing it quite a bit. The odd song left the girl baffled. Her friend then approached her, whispering. Park Ji-hyun was left alerted when asked if she was attracted to our hero. Her face became quite red upon seeing how clear her feelings seemed. With that, she apologized for inviting the three of them and claimed that Guak Pilsong must not see her as a romantic partner. But to her surprise, the mage grabbed her hand, as she affirmed that she would be supporting and helping her, which greatly moved Hunter Park. Just then, the impressive score of 100 appeared. As Kim began to praise his master, the old one revealed that he was asked to become a singer in his youth, but upon realizing his own slip-up, quickly shook it off. The mage then caught his attention and asked him to go to the comic store with her friend in order to find her lost wallet. And just as Lee Jong-hwan tried to propose his services, to the girl's horror, he was suddenly kicked underneath the table by the mage, who cheerfully asked the old man once again, as the others watched in disbelief. After thinking for a small moment, Guak Pilsong agreed, leaving Park Ji-hyun unhappy. And while the one with glasses was rooting for her, the boy could only watch in silence. After finding the wallet, the girl thanked the protagonist, who wanted to immediately rejoin the others for his help. But as the surprised girl quickly refused, Guak Pilsong asked her if she needed help with another matter, making her struggle to reply. The hero then asked her about what was on her mind as she began to panic, seeing how she was losing the opening that her friend created for her. After gathering her courage, Hunter Park asked the protagonist if he was currently interested in someone. Guak Pilsong affirmed that he previously did with a saddened expression, making the girl assume that he was talking about a failed relationship. But to her surprise, the lady in question turned out to have lost her life. This made the marksman panic and apologize for her question, but our hero affirmed that it didn't matter anymore. Hunter Park assumed that this loss was the result of a tragedy, which made her assume that she must have died during a raid. But in reality, the old man was talking about an elderly woman who passed away due to old age. Guak Pilsong then related her weird question to his second disciple, which confused the girl. To her surprise, the master implied that his pupil had feelings for her and that they made a pretty good duo in karaoke. This made the blushing one affirm that she was interested in someone else, picking the hero's curiosity, who asked her if this crush was an acquaintance of his. But just as she was about to give her answer, the red-faced girl was overwhelmed and ran away to the bathroom. This behavior intrigued the old man, seeing how he just couldn't understand today's youth. Meanwhile, an uncomfortable silence installed itself in the karaoke room as only two hunters remained. The girl tried to make some small talk by stating how all were late. Hunter Kim pointed out that his junior was taking too long in the bathroom, which made him worry, but according to the mage, it must be nothing. She then wondered if her friend found any luck. Meanwhile, the said friend seemed surprised, as she found herself in front of his stiff Lee Jong-hwan. But just as she assumed that this was a declaration, and felt as if her heart was about to burst, excitement was replaced with fear as Jong-hwan apologized when an ominous presence suddenly appeared behind her. Upon turning around, the marksman felt horrified. With that, Park Ji-hyun began to scream as Lee Jong-hwan watched in silence. Upon seeing how much time she was taking, Guak Pilsong grew curious, seeing how Hunter Park had left for the bathroom half an hour ago. But just then, his phone began to ring, and upon picking it up, the man was left shocked as the caller asked him about Hunter Park. Guak Pilsong demanded to know who was talking to him. This amused the caller, as he introduced himself as the one responsible for his friend's safety to an old man who wasn't fond of his methods. The man then affirmed that Park Ji-hyun would remain unharmed as long as he complied. And with the hero having no choice but to agree, the kidnapper decided to send him the meeting point and affirm that he should come alone. After hanging up, a fire installed itself in our hero's eyes. Later that evening, in an isolated location, the thugs stood around their boss, who grew tired of waiting for our hero. The goon then asked his boss if their target would even bother to show up. Upon seeing how angered the man in charge was after hearing those words, the man began to panic. Suddenly, his face was savagely grabbed as he was lifted off the ground by the one who threw him away. The thug demanded to be called Guildmaster instead of boss, as they weren't a mere gang anymore. The Guildmaster used this situation to warn the others about calling him boss, as they were now a legal guild in the eyes of the association. With that, the boss of the guild asked his goons to escort the man away. Before regaining his seat, just then, another of his subordinates asked him about the words of the Northern Lights leader. With that, he began to recall. Earlier at the Northern Light Guild, Ko Young-hoon was intrigued as his men tried to stop someone from entering. The past gangster barged into the guild master's office. It had been a while since Siu Wang-ho met with Ko Young-hoon, who was unpleased by the presence of this uninvited guest. The grisly boss claimed to have stumbled upon an interesting rumor that stated that the boss of the Northern Light had been defeated by a B rank, to the guild master's surprise, who pointed out how Siu Wang-ho must have nothing to do, seeing how he came all this way just to make fun of him. So the gangster revealed that he was only here to know more about the B rank Prodigy. Ko Young-hoon advised the thug not to mess with the protagonist as a courtesy of their old friendship. Being called friend by the A rank intrigued the grisly guild master, who suddenly burst out laughing, and after letting out a big smile, he was determined to prove Ko Young-hoon that he was wrong, making him fear the worst. Back to the present, the past gangster was snapped back to reality by our hero's arrival. An emotionless-looking Gwak Pilsung made his entrance. Siu Wang-ho immediately welcomed him, pointing out the long wait he had to endure. The old man directly asked about the young girl's whereabouts. Seeing how eager he was to see her, the gangster reassured him by stating that she was unharmed. It seemed her not moving made the hero feel alerted, and so he demanded an explanation. Siu Wang-ho revealed that she just fell asleep after ingesting a drug they gave her. Gwak Pilsung then demanded to know the gang's name and their motives. This made the gangster realize that he hadn't presented himself yet, and so he introduced himself as the leader of the Grisly Guild, Siu Wang-ho. Just then, our hero recalled how Park Dabin once mentioned this group. Siu Wang-ho felt complimented upon being called crazy, just as rumored by our hero, for pointing out how certain of himself he must be to face them alone. Yet when the gangster mentioned how this was natural for the legendary hunter, the protagonist was left shocked, as it meant that the Grisly Guild was aware of his real identity. Siu Wang-ho affirmed that he wouldn't have done all of this to attract a nameless B rank. Having uncovered the old man, the gangster expressed his amazement upon seeing him looking like a young teenager. Gwak Pilsung was even more surprised when the gangster stated that the association was also aware of his return. Siu Wang-ho began to speculate how powerful the hero was in his prime, recalled how he was rumored to have the potential to lead the association, and assumed that this rumor was the reason behind the association's hatred toward him. The gangster then revealed how he was tasked by the association to eliminate the B-rank hunter, and after seeing how odd it seemed, he did some research which led him to discover the young-looking one's true identity. With that, Gwak Pilsung assumed that this kidnapping was in fact a plot to get him out of the picture. But to his surprise, the man offered his hand before proposing a partnership. Our shocked hero couldn't comprehend it. Siu Wang-ho explained that the association annoyed him, seeing how it always tried to intervene in his affairs, which is why he proposed they join forces to satisfy their common hatred. Gwak Pilsung affirmed that many things weren't worthy of his hate, and that a situation where he was the reason behind a loved one getting harmed was surely not one of them. The gangster apologized for using the marksman as bait and claimed that this was his way of declaring war on the association. Yet Gwak Pilsung was well aware that she was a necessary hostage, as his refusal was obvious. This made the guildmaster praise the old man for his quick thinking. With that, the hero pointed out that the gangster was as shameless as his past student implied, yet Siu Wang-ho affirmed that he truly wanted him as a partner. The gangster then claimed to have a surprise for the protagonist. As he approached, his master was left utterly baffled, as it was no other than Li Jianghwan. The Grisly Guild master revealed that the young one was in fact one of his men, before mockingly asking Gwak Pilsung his opinion about this little plot twist. With that, the man demanded the old one cooperate or risk having Park Ji-hyun harmed. Gwak Pilsung affirmed that he will forever hold a grudge. Now infuriated, the legendary hunter decided to physically discipline the guild master. And so Gwak Pilsung asked the thug to brace himself, as our hero started a fight once again against many foes. The leader of Grisly was amused to see the old one trying to discipline him, pointing out how he was once the best hunter. Yet according to him, he became a weakling that was now a mere B rank, which meant that he fell off. The thug then advised the old man to prepare himself, as he was about to pay the price of his refusal. With that, the Grisly master ordered his men to attack. Yet this didn't intimidate Gwak Pilsung, who easily dodged the first attack. He then noticed a thug targeting his back, and so he quickly evaded his blade, sneaked up behind him, before kicking him square in the face. Just like that, the gang member was defeated in one hit. Gwak Pilsung then turned his gaze, and asked the Grisly members if they were already done. With that, the legendary hunter finally unsheathed his sword, as it was now his chance to counterattack. And so our hero launched himself at the enemy, immediately going for the boss. Yet Siu Wang-ho remained unfazed. The thug managed to block the sword, to our hero's surprise. Siu Wang-ho revealed to his target that he was more powerful than expected, implying that his past reputation truly paid him homage. As he pushed off the old man's blade, the thug affirmed that the past will always be the past, which is why the 80-year-old hunter should just accept his fate and give up. This made Gwak Pilsung bite his tireless mouth. With that, the fight continued as both exchanged blows at an incredible speed. to the point where the thugs were unable to keep up. The fight was growing more fierce by the minute. Siu Wangho, who confessed to having underestimated the old man, related his incredible strength to his miraculous rejuvenation. Guak Pilsong affirmed that his grudge only kept growing upon seeing these impeccable skills being used in such shameless ways. The gangster affirmed that he would now start fighting seriously as he unleashed his skilled fist of the Iron Will. Upon seeing it, his goons assured that victory was just around the corner. Yet our hero wasn't impressed, as he easily blocked the attack, to the grisly member's bafflement. Shortly after, the gangster noticed the old one charging at him from above. With that, Guak Pilsong finally managed to land a hit on the guild master, who screamed in pain in front of his opponent, who didn't seem to have broken a sweat. Siu Wangho even began to cough blood. Guak Pilsong called him out on his poor mastery over his own powers despite being labeled as S-rank, and advised him not to solely rely on skills when attacking. This made the young one recall how the old man once scolded him for the same reason. The gangster grew tired of these cocky lessons, as he screamed for his healers to attend to his injuries. The gang members immediately obeyed. After affirming to have underestimated our hero, the man had no choice but to admit that the legendary hunter was still forced to fear. Once fully healed, the guildmaster proposed to continue their fight, and so, after concentrating his magic power and reaching a certain power level, the S-rank launched himself at our hero, as he was certain that the old man wouldn't be able to parry him this time. Yet, as Guak Pilsong cloaked his sword in mana, the boss was left utterly baffled, seeing how he easily blocked his powerful charge, and how he even managed to knock him back. After seeing how he was overpowered, the thug demanded to know the nature of the skill that knocked him back. But to his surprise, the old man affirmed that he had only enhanced his sword with magic. Siu Wangho was unable to believe that such a simple skill could produce such firepower, and only grew more frustrated when the protagonist stated that a skill's power solely depended on its user. With that, the gangster charged at him once again, only for our hero to point out the pitiful state of his blade. Seeing this made the S-rank realize that the legendary hunter had been targeting his weapon all along. After letting his blades go, the grizzly found himself cornered, and so he turned to Li Jianghuan in panic. The thug ordered the scared young man to end Park Ji-hyun's life if the old man tried anything else. The boy found himself unable to fight back as he had no choice but to obey. With that, the gangster asked his opponent about his next move, stating how the life of his friend was on the line. And just like that, both master and student had to think carefully about their next course of action. As the protagonist found himself in a tough situation, his opponent demanded that he let go of his sword first in order to save Hunter Park. Guak Pilsong began to give an odd look to his ashamed student, and so he dropped his blade, before asking the S-rank if this pleased him. The man affirmed that this was the level of obedience that he expected, and that despite not wanting to take his life, he would not allow the young-looking one to leave without a few broken bones as he charged at him. Upon seeing this, Guak Pilsong quickly smashed the thug's face with his knee, making him scream in pain. The hero then repositioned himself, before delivering a powerful kick to the man's guts, sending him flying through the wall. Just like that, Siu Wangho had sustained quite some damage, making him affirm to the old one that his threats regarding the girl weren't empty. As Guak Pilsong affirmed how despicable it was for an S-rank to abduct someone, this one affirmed that he wasn't perfect, and so he ordered Li Jianghuan to amputate Hunter Park's arms in order to prove to the protagonist that their threats were no bluff. At first, the young man hesitated, and in the end, he was unable to do it. This angered the boss, who insisted on his order once again, which left the young one terrified. With that, the boy finally decided to give in to fear, when suddenly his master addressed him, having decided to remind him of the dream that led him to become a hunter, before asking him if a life of forced crime was truly what he desired. Hunter Lee began to hesitate as he recalled his desire to be like the heroes of his beloved comics. Stating this angered the boss, who urged him to cut off Hunter Park's arms, filling him once again with fear. But after gathering some courage, the boy decided to finally drop the knife. This betrayal greatly angered the S-rank. With that, Siu Wangho launched himself at the young man, when suddenly he noticed the legendary hunter behind him. Guak Pilsong smashed the thug's head to the ground with a quick flying kick, leaving him to scream in pain. With that, the guildmaster in front of his subordinates was no longer able to fight, and so he had no other choice but to admit Guak Pilsong's victory, as he stated that he would give him what he wanted in exchange for his life. The thug affirmed that he never intended to take the hero's life, yet Guak Pilsong affirmed that the thug wouldn't stop his evil deeds just because he was asked to, seeing how he only responded to physical pain. This merciless sight made the Grizzly Guild grow scared, as their boss affirmed that it wouldn't be necessary seeing how he had already surrendered. As the protagonist grazed his words, Siu Wangho insisted on the fact that he was going to let him live. The man then began to beg for mercy, as he firmly affirmed that he would never bother the old man ever again. Fear filled his soul as the hero went for the stab, only for the blade to miss him by a hair and hit the ground. With that, Siu Wangho passed out from pure fear. Guak Pilsong then turned to his henchmen and asked them if they still had a problem with him, yet none dared to reply. In the protagonist's eyes, all of them looked like mindless idiots. Guak Pilsong then ordered the men to get their boss out of his sight unless they wanted to keep on fighting. Li Jianghuan stood there in silence, when he suddenly noticed the old man approaching him. The ashamed one, who didn't dare to call Guak Pilsung his master, apologized for tricking him. Yet the old man didn't reply and raised his fist. But as the boy expected the worst, Guak Pilsung let out a small smile and affirmed to his student as he patted him on the shoulder that he had to address him as master. The young man was shocked to see the old one forgive him after everything he had done. Guak Pilsung explained that none was free of sin, and that scolding was only for those who failed to admit or see their mistakes, before adding how Li Zhonghuan once mentioned his dream to become like the heroes of comics. The protagonist revealed that in the one he was reading, the main character gains power after overcoming his hardships, and that his student resembled this so-called hero quite a lot. These sincere words deeply moved Li Zhonghuan. With that, the old man stated that they should take Hunter Park and leave. Hunter Lee was left to reflect on all that had just happened. Sometime later, an annoyed Ko Young-hoon asked about the reason behind this unexpected meeting. So the hero affirmed that he obviously wanted to talk to him before asking the man if he had any complaints about it. The man denied, and affirmed that he was just intrigued by Guak Pilsung using the Grizzly Guild's territory as their rendezvous point. After walking inside, Ko Young-hoon was left utterly shocked upon seeing the members of Grizzly greeting our hero as such. The past thug followed in silence. He was unable to comprehend the fact that the Grizzly Guild members were greeting our hero like that, which made him have some suspicions. And so he decided to ask Guak Pilsung if he enlisted in the Grizzly Guild. But the old man affirmed that he would never belong to such a group, before asking the leader of the Northern Light to follow in silence. Ko Young-hoon had a faint idea in mind regarding the next scene, as the young-looking one casually barged into the office, only to reveal someone hiding in fear behind the desk. This was no other than the S-rank hunter that leads this guild. Seeing this angered the old man, who asked the young one to stand firm. Ko Young-hoon was left baffled, as the imposing man apologized like a coward. The master of the 11th couldn't believe it, as despite being the weakest of the S-ranks, Siu Wang-ho was still an impressive hunter, yet our hero was casually scolding him for hiding like that despite his immense size. Ko Young-hoon demanded an explanation, so Guak Pilsung stated that he physically disciplined the gangster, yet he was clueless as to why he was acting like that and how he was currently unable to lead his guild. Ko Young-hoon agreed. The old man then recalled how the man once stated that he wanted his guild to climb the ranks, which is why he had a deal to offer him. The leader of the Northern Lights was left baffled as he was asked to absorb the Grizzly Guild. According to our hero, the Northern Lights would gain great power from this despite the fact that Siu Wang-ho leads the Grizzly. Yet Ko Young-hoon didn't find it right for his guild to absorb one that outranks them, which the protagonist found ironic, seeing how he forced hunters to join not long ago, before turning to the current leader and asking if he had any objections. So the terrified S-rank affirmed that he had no problem regarding the absorption and would even quit the hunting world if necessary. Yet Guak Pilsung affirmed that he should stay, seeing how the guild needed S-rank members, and with that he quickly agreed to stay. The gangster seemed pathetic in Ko Young-hoon's eyes. After receiving the agreement of the current master, the man was asked about his own decision. Ko Young-hoon was curious why he was chosen despite the previous bad blood between them. So our hero recalled how he was building a team to take down the association. Guak Pilsung revealed that he would make the 11th absorb the 10th as a start and turn them into the 1st. This shocked the man. The old one then recalled how his dream was to create the best guild. With that, Ko Young-hoon assumed that the protagonist was asking him to become his servant. Yet our hero explained that this wasn't the case, as he simply wished to help. Ko Young-hoon found this ridiculous offer rather tempting, and so he made his choice. The leader of the Northern Lights agreed to absorb the Grizzly Guild, which pleased the old man. Just then, a man barged into the room in order to report an urgent issue, as according to him, the emissary of the association had returned to see Siu Wang-ho. This intrigued our hero. Just then, the door was opened. After checking on the guild master, Yoon Do-kyun apologized for his sudden visit. After getting a hold of himself, Siu Wang-ho demanded to know the reason behind this unexpected drop-by, as he was left to think. Earlier, our hero explained that they would hide in the next room while the guild master met with the envoy of the association. The man was left terrified as an 80-year-old man warned him about acting suspicious. Back to the present, the tall one demanded to know the reason behind Yoon Do-kyun's presence. The man revealed he was here for the latest updates regarding the mission given to the Grizzly Guild, seeing how passionate his superiors were regarding the matter, but was then left quite intrigued upon seeing the guild master letting out a sigh of relief. Siu Wang-ho asked the leader of the violent crimes team about the reason behind the Hunter Association's obsession regarding this particular B rank. The man cracked a smile, before affirming that he had no reason to justify their actions to him. Yoon Do-kyun then stated that the man should blindly obey in order to conserve his guild's ranking, and while the guildmaster realized that he was being threatened, the man claimed that this was simply work. With his message clearly delivered, the leader of the violent crimes team decided to take his leave. But before exiting the room, he affirmed that he expected good results from the Grizzly Guild, leaving its leader utterly annoyed. But annoyance quickly turned into fear as Guak Pilsung suddenly popped up to check if the man had left. The old man then praised the S-rank hunter for his unexpected acting skills, Whack Pilsung then asked with a display of aura if Su Wango planned to betray them in the end. The S-rank hunter, who immediately took this joke as a threat, firmly denied having any intention of stabbing them in the back. Whack Pilsung then pointed out how the association had no honor, seeing how it only cared for the outcome regardless of the method, and that they took advantage of inter-hunter conflicts. This made him realize that the organization that once defended the hunters was now corrupt and ready to take out the innocent for its own sake. Upon seeing this, the guildmaster was left to think, wondering about the true identity of our hero, seeing how the association wanted to kill him at all cost. With that, the old one made up his mind. Whack Pilsung decided to take action, and finally counterattack. Later that day, inside a coffee shop, our hero was sitting face to face with Lee Jong-hwan. Whack Pilsung pointed out how his previous student left the hunting world. The boy affirmed that after reflecting, he realized that he wasn't cut out for the hunter life. Yet, when asked about his future plans, the boy struggled to reply. Later that same day, inside the building of a TV channel, the boy was quite nervous. Lee Jong-hwan was as anxious as usual, so the man reassured him by affirming that his identity would remain a secret, before asking him to relax and be natural once on air, and stating that the boy had to simply answer their questions. With that, the recording was about to commence. Lee Jong-hwan found himself in the news studio. The reporter explained to the viewers that according to recent intel, some of the guilds formed by many hunters had partaken in illegal activities, and that they have a special guest on today's episode. The masked Lee Jong-hwan greeted the audience. The journalist asked the young man if he was truly once a part of a popular guild, which he confirmed. And when asked about this guild's crimes, the boy confessed that their leader brutalized civilians and forced some individuals to sign slave contracts. But just as he was about to bring up his boss's latest crime, a sudden sound was heard. This intrigued the filming team, and so one of them decided to go check on it. The sound was coming from behind the door. As the man was about to open it, the door was suddenly forced open by the angry S-rank hunter. Su Wangho was greatly angered by the fact that this was being filmed in secret. The man demanded to know what was happening, but just as he tried to calm the hunter down by stating that they were on live TV, he was suddenly grabbed by the collar. The S-rank affirmed that he didn't care and asked the man if he was aware of who he was. He then threatened the man to bring him this one person or suffer his wrath. This left the civilian confused, so the thug clarified, stating that he was here for his previous gang member. Yet while he tried to act confused, the man's eyes looked at the door by mistake. This made the thug speculate that the young man was hiding behind it, and so he barged in, searching for Lee Jong-hwan. But to his surprise, all he was met with was emptiness. This made the S-rank grow irritated. Su Wango screamed at Lee Jong-hwan to come out of his hiding spot in great anger. But just then, someone tried to stop him. The man affirmed that he wasn't expecting to see the S-rank here. This was no other than Yoon Do-kyun. The gangster then found himself surrounded. The confused man assumed that they were looking for a fight. With that, Yoon reminded him that they are the team of violent crimes and that an anonymous source informed them of a troubling hunter. Yet he was still surprised to see that it was him. Su Wangho explained that he was here to deal with one of his previous men who tried to reveal his crimes on the air. The team leader affirmed that his exposed behavior was a problem, which is why they couldn't turn a blind eye to it. Yet to his shock, the guildmaster affirmed that Lee Jong-hwan was aware of the secret deal between them. Yoon Do-kyun called out the S-rank for his barbaric ways, which left him disappointed. Yet the angry hunter claimed that this was all due to the association constantly tasking him with its dirty work. With that, the hands of the team leader were tied, as he affirmed that the urgent matter was now to locate the young man. And when asked what should his fate be once found, he declared that they should terminate him in order to leave no proof behind. Just then, the men noticed that the guildmaster was no longer behind them. Yoon Do-kyun ordered his men to chase Su Wangho, whom he assumed was trying to escape. The thug affirmed that he would be the one to kill Lee Jong-hwan. The team leader urged his men to also track down the boy. This left him greatly angered. Meanwhile, the young man in question hid himself in the dark. Assuming himself off the radar, the past hunter began to wonder about Whack Pilsung's whereabouts. Lee Jong-hwan then recalled what had happened. As back at the coffee shop when asked by his master about his future plans, the boy explained that entering another work field was quite challenging for someone like him who dedicated himself to becoming a hunter. This made the youth feel that he was just dumping his failures on the old man. Lee Jong-hwan then asked Whack Pilsung about the reason behind their meeting. The hero explained that he was here to ask for a favor, piquing the boy's curiosity. Back to the present, Lee Jong-hwan wished for his master to arrive soon as he had no idea what to do next after executing the old one's plan. Just then, one of the association members tried to use his katana in order to strike him down, but just as he noticed, the sound of clashing steel echoed. Master had arrived just in time to protect student. The young one was overjoyed by the old one's arrival. After praising him for his good work, the hero affirmed to the boy that he had nothing to fear as he was here. The S-rank hunter began to scream for his target while searching for it. When asked if the young man had truly escaped this way, the hunter confirmed. The team leader grew frustrated and affirmed that he had no time to waste. So Su Wangmo stated that error is something human. With that, the annoyed one asked his men to exit the building, when suddenly a flying table missed him by a hair. The culprit was none other than the S-rank, who was determined to keep them inside. Back then, the confident hunter was terrified when he was asked to make the association waste its time. His fear of Guak Pilsung immediately led him to accept. Back to the present, the S-rank was irritated, seeing how he was regretting having ignored Ko Young-hoon's advice. Yoon Do-kyun then pointed out how this action would make him the enemy of the association. So the S-rank hunter revealed that there was an individual that he feared more than the hunter organization. With that being said, the leader of the violent crimes team decided to dispose of him earlier than scheduled. Seo Wang-ho was left once again annoyed as recently no one had been taking him seriously. And so, after each of them confessed their hatred at first sight for the other, the gangster found himself surrounded by Yoon Do-kyun's forces, and so he launched the attack. Seo Wang-ho affirmed that their numbers were far too little to handle him, as he used his powerful fist in order to create a defensive shockwave. Yet the team leader found this confidence prideful as the gangster found himself tangled in magic chains. The S-rank hunter was shocked to learn that he was truly trapped by this skill. Yoon Do-kyun then revealed that the reason behind his ascension to leader of the violent crimes team was the fact that he possessed a unique skill that could even restrain the strongest of hunters. According to the man, many S-ranks fall for his slow chains, seeing how they were too prideful to dodge them. And so he gave the signal to his men, tightening the chains on the one who screamed in pain. With that, the leader of the Grizzly Guild fell to his knees. The team leader affirmed that even the weak could defeat the strong if they managed to catch them by surprise. With that, the man took the katana of his subordinate in order to finish off Seo Wang-ho. But just as he was about to go for the kill, he noticed a hero charging at him from behind. This was none other than Guak Pilsung, whom he managed to block at the last second. With that, Yoon Do-kyun tried to gain some distance. A man demanded to know the reason behind the legendary hunter's presence. Guak Pilsung claimed that there was no reason to justify his absence. This made the leader of the violent crimes team realize that the protagonist was the one who pushed Seo Wang-ho to betray them. Guak Pilsung demanded to know who ordered his execution, yet Yoon Do-kyun refused to answer. And when asked for a plan by his subordinate, the man assumed that some hope was left for them, seeing how the S-rank hunter was restrained. And so he ordered the attack. The first henchman readied his flail and launched it at our hero. His team leader found himself in a tough situation. All men charged at the protagonist, yet Guak Pilsung remained unimpressed as he tore right through them. None of the men were able to even scratch the legendary hunter. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on Tob's channel.